Welcome everyone to another Orbit online event. This time it's with our friends from Preely. We're very happy that they're willing to share their insights on user testing and UX with us here today. So before we begin, I just have a few quick things to go through. First of all, I want to make all of you aware that we are recording this talk and that we will make it publicly available. However, please hang tight. This is going to be one of those sessions that is going to be most interesting live. And this is today's program. So a few very interesting points to get through. A brief presentation of Team Orbit Lab present here today. My name is Lida. I am the community manager here in Orbit Lab, and we've got our intern, Kasper. And also here with us is Kasper, the other Kasper, who's professor and lab commander, and you'll get to meet him in a minute. And these are the good people of Preely, Tina and Klaus, whom you'll also get to meet shortly. So for the questions, I think the format is most suitable for posting them during the chat, during the talk in the chat function. But I think we'll save them for the Q&A session later on, unless something is really urgent. Kasper will be keeping an eye on the chat. Let's see. Just a very quick advertising spot for a couple of our other upcoming events. You can read more about them on our website and social channels. And of course, we encourage you to follow all our social channels and send some love in our direction. So before I hand you over to Kasper, I can tell you that the Preely slides will be sent out to you Monday. And that's all that's left for me to say. So I wish you a great session and enjoy the talk. Over to you, Kasper.
All right, thanks for that, Lida. Actually, my job here is only to introduce our first speaker, as you saw in the program, is Tina Øvald from Preely now. Previously been at a lot of interesting companies and worked with agile UX and UX in general at Bang & Olufsen, Nykredit, and Radiometer. She holds a master degree in engineering psychology from Aalborg University and also did a PhD within user experience in information systems. And funny little side story is that we actually had the same PhD supervisor. So in that sense, there's also a link there. So obviously, we think this is a super important topic, not just for companies, but also for our students to understand the importance of user experience. And as many of them are engineers and practically oriented, I also really like the idea to get some concrete tools that they can use to make sure that all the hard effort they put into building technical stuff would actually be used by people and serve some good use in society. So I think, Tina, you can probably say a bit more about yourself, and then you can also introduce Klaus later on when it's his turn.
Yeah, or maybe I should just do it now, because we normally have like a very ping pong back and forth when we have these presentations.
For sure.
So hi everyone, I'm Tina, and I think Kasper actually introduced me quite well. I have been in different organizations, and I have worked a lot with UX and software environments. So I also think that's quite spot on compared to that you actually are, some of you are UX software designers or software developers. So my PhD was actually about like making a UX tool for software developers and actually empowering software developers to conduct some usability and UX work themselves as well. So I have had a lot of interviews and a lot of like sparring back and forth with a lot of software developers in order to actually like try to mature usability and UX knowledge within that group as well. So I'm definitely also open for questions about that after our presentation. And now for 2 months, I have been working together with Preely. I think it is a very interesting platform due to that it's a remote unmoderated user testing. We can see like a lot of our customers actually use the platform for moderated tests as well. So that's also something we will touch upon in the presentation. But we are in the world for unmoderated remote testing, of course. Yeah, and I have brought Klaus with me today. Klaus is our CEO and co-founder of Freely. And I'm not sure if you would like to say something as well, Klaus.
I have a terrible Wi-Fi connection, I can see. Oh, so yeah, but no, I'm here to support Tina. So.
Okay, then he was out. Shoot. Yeah, but Freely has existed for almost 5 years and has been a bit on hold, like for the past 1.5 years, and then we are like starting to run again now and have a lot on our plates for the upcoming year as well. And that's also something I'll touch upon in our presentation, so we have a bit of an idea of where we are and where we're going as well. So I'm not sure with Klaus, maybe I should start.
Start, Tina. I'm dropping. So sorry.
We will start. Awesome.
Oh, I don't know what is going on. It's Copenhagen Wi-Fi time.
Exactly. So we are so happy to be here, of course, and very interested that like other people than UX designers could be up for actually like trying out our tool or see if it's something like you can use as well. And of course, it's also for UX designers that we can support in different test methods and also collecting different UX and usability metrics as well. So I will see. So we have a small agenda. So we will talk a bit about who we are also as a team. Then I'll touch a bit upon usability and user experience design as well. Of course, this is a very broad topic. So this is just like a couple of slides just to set you in the mood for what I'm talking about and just like setting the scene for where we're going as well. Then we'll talk a bit about remote unmoderated user testing, what it is, the benefits, and also talk about it in agile environment, because this is something that's very close to my heart, of course, because I come from the agile world as well. And then like after I've talked a lot, then we know that you need some hands-on experiences in order to actually understand what I'm trying to convey verbally. So we will actually ask you to participate in a short user test, so you can actually try out how it is to be a test participant using Preely. And then we'll give an introduction to Preely. It would be like behind the scenes. So we will show you which type of data we are collecting, how it's presented on our platform as well, and also just give you some ideas on how we have set up that test you have gone through. And then of course we have the Q&A session at the end where you can ask the questions that comes to mind, of course. And then we have a goal for today, and that's actually that everybody can create, execute, and analyze a test in Preely. So we have a lot on our plate, so I think we should just like try to get going. And then again, just ask questions. I know we have the questions at the end, but if something is very unclear in my presentation and you're completely lost, then just let Casper know as well, and then we'll try to see what we can do. So Preely. We are a very small team. We are based in Copenhagen, except me. I'm in Jylland. I'm actually in Nibe, just south of Aalborg. And then we have some developers as well in Kyiv, in Ukraine as well. We are 3 full-time employees, so that's Klaus and me, and then also our CTO and co-founder, Seppe. So very small, but based in primarily in Denmark. So yeah, so that's us. So I actually want to like set the scene a bit about usability and UX. And this picture is actually something that is very controversial when we talk about usability and UX, and also when we are in this space of UX designers, because all UX designers hate this picture because it actually doesn't convey what user experience is. But I've brought it with me today because I definitely believe it conveys the message of keeping your users in mind when you design, and also bring your users to the table when you design as well. So you can see here we have the design path, where we have the path that is laid by the designers of this urban environment. And then we have the path the users have actually made themselves, called user experience. And both of the path are actually user experiences. Like we can say like one are better than the other, but we can say that there's been some user involvement in one of them. But if we go back to saying like the track called the design, the user experience there is actually that you can imagine that if it rains one day, you will actually go there because you can have dry feet. So that would be a great user experience set in that setting. But like in normal day and a day like this where there's sunshine, the user experience might be in the other way, because we need to know what the end goals are for the user. And here the end goal, we can see also with the track being made on the ground that it seems to be a fast an easy way to get over the bridge that is in the background. So if we take that into the software world, that's actually quite important, because you can see software being developed by software engineers and software designers and software developers being the design track here on this picture, and it works, but maybe it's not the easiest way. Maybe it's not like spot on compared to what your end user actually wants. So it's so important to bring in the users and actually test it out, and then know that, okay, there is actually an end goal here we need to fulfill. And if you don't fulfill that in a software system, either the product will not be used. That's terrible, because that's just like work out the window, or it will be like some work where people start to hacking the system in order to make it work in their context. So bringing the end user in is very, very important to have like a great user experience at the end. So that's what I want to like have that in mind, like throughout the presentation as well. So when we talk about like user experience design and in general design hierarchy, we have different things that needs to be fulfilled in order to, at the end or at the top, make a great user experience. So in the bottom in the hierarchy is functionality. So that's where the design works. It meets basic functional needs, and where the design is not important. So how it looks like, how it feel like, how like the experience is not that important here, but we need a product that actually works. So if you have a phone, like it's not a phone if you cannot use it for making phone calls. So that would be like, in that case, like, okay, you can make a phone call, so the functionality is actually there. Then you also need reliability. So again, like you need a stable and consistent performance. And again, the design is not that important right now. But again, with the phone example, you need to be able to like call, and you need to be able to call every time you want to call somebody. And to be honest, I've worked in organizations where like the functionality of the products that they said I should like ask me to make a great experience for was there, but the reliability wasn't. So no matter how good I am at my job, it was impossible to make a great user experience. So these two things are very, very important in order to actually start looking into, okay, can we actually make some sort of experience around the product? Then we have usability, and that's where like the design is forgiving, it's easy to use, and we start to have some sort of design to the product as well. So you could imagine that you have the phone, now it can ring. Now it rings every time, or you can call every time you want to do that. But now you also make it more easy for your customer or your end user to actually use it. So that could be, instead of having people's numbers like stored in your mind, we actually put it out there, so it's very easy for you to call, and you will have a list with all the numbers of the people you want to contact. So that would be usability, and there's a lot of different things here as well, like when we talk into usability and the difference between usability and UX and so on. But that's like a very, very broad talk we don't have time for today, unfortunately. Then we have proficiency, and that's the next level, and that's where we empower people to do more and better, and where design actually starts to come into the equation as well. So if we take the example with the phone again, this is where that for instance, like you want to do more than just call, you want to use it as some sort of tool in your daily life. So that could be that we add on a functionality saying that, okay, we want to be able to have a hand-free call, so you can actually use it when you travel or when you're in your car, and then still be able to drive. So that's where we put in some extra stuff that starts to make like distinguish our product from maybe also our competitors, and put in new functionality to the concept. And then last but not least, we have creativity, and that's where aesthetic comes in. That's where we start to talk about this innovative interactions, innovative design, and where like the design is also very much in focus. So in the phone example, that will of course be like, I guess that a lot of you now will think about, okay, Apple, right? So there is like some more to it that also sometimes is very hard to put into words, but it has something extra, and normally that extra will often be the user experience design as well. We could also imagine that if we take it like down a notch and not talk about Apple, but talk about like phone in general, it could be where you have the opportunity to make a customized call tone or ringtone for like your friends and family, so you can actually hear who's ringing before you actually look at the screen on the phone. But it's very important to be aware that you need to actually like go into all these levels, and actually like cover them in order to make a great experience. If you don't do that, it's like the experience will often break. And you will also see often, as I said before, that when you go into companies that they think that you can make magic just if you have functionality as well. So I'll definitely say that have this in mind when you start working with your things. I'm not sure like if everybody has like a software background and so on, but sometimes it's also very nice to actually use this model to talk from and then say, okay, what can we expect next? What should we actually focus on? So instead of when you go and have like a reliable product or a reliable functionality and say, okay, now we want to put like a great user experience on top of that, you actually need to go more through more than that in order to make sure that it would actually be a stable, great user experience as well. So that's just to set the scene. And again, user experience is such a broad term. So right now we're just like narrow it down, but user experience is the whole, like all like the things, like everything around the product. So it's also a timeline. So you can have a great user experience of a product before you actually have the product in your hand, where when you talk into usability, there you need to be able to use the product in order to like see the usability of the product. But again, that's a whole nother talk in this space. So the importance of user testing in software, and now we saw a bit with the whole like picture with the different paths we saw before. But in order to like why we actually want to test software is to ensure that we have answers to these questions we have put in here. So it's like, is there a market for the product idea? Are we developing what our end users or customers want? And does the end user understand how to use the product? And today we'll focus mainly on the latter, because we actually need other methods in order to address the two others. Remote testing can be used for doing that, but I definitely believe that there is a time and space for everything. And I would definitely say, as a UX designer, you should consider something else in those two stages instead. So now we'll start to talk into like user testing. So we have traditional user testing, and I've brought with me today like a double diamond, and I've just put that in the slide because that's what everybody uses right now. So that's the it process right now. But to be honest, we could put in whatever process here, and it will convey the same, because you need to have phases where you open up, and you need to have phases where you narrow it down as well. So what we will cover today is mainly like where you actually need to like narrowing down where you're going with things. So when we like want to open up and have this diverging phases, normally you will have a more qualitative approach. You will have more like where you actually need to sit together with your customers or end users in order to actually have a feeling of like where, like how do they use the tool, how could they potentially use your product, and so on. So it's very important to have this like, okay, other things than just the functionality of what you're developing. And then we have the converging, where we have it more like we want to focus on some quantitative stuff and actually start to like have some validation of ideas, and at the end a validation of the finished product or finished concept as well. So that's where we are right now. So if we actually start talking about remote user testing, like it's very important to say that like remote user testing, especially during COVID-19, we could see that, okay, this is like something that we need to be able to do. Before we had a very much like this qualitative approach where we want to sit together with the customers, and also using this think aloud protocol as well, and use a lot of time to be with our participants. So that's also some good things actually coming from working remote, and especially when we start talking about unmoderated as well. Then we have a sustainability point of view. I've worked in companies, especially in the medical world, where we wanted to, like, we travel around the world in order to sit together and besides the ones we actually tested with. Again, sometimes it makes sense to do so, sometimes it doesn't. But sustainability-wise, there's a lot of money to save and a lot of environmental hazards that actually can be solved by just being able to do it remote. And again, it depends on what's being tested and where you are in the process as well, of course. And then, like, it's something that we actually didn't think about, but we can see a lot of our customers talk about this. Like, it's actually quite nice. We have the opportunity of testing with a diverse demographics. So instead of like traveling out and, you know, like pinpointing that, okay, we need to talk with these and these and these people. Now we can actually reach globally as well. And so the only thing that is needed is a quite stable internet connection, of course. And then I had a discussion with like a fellow UX designer some days ago, where she also said that it's actually quite nice being able to conduct these tests remote, due to the fact that when you have a test participant coming into your organization, coming into your company and standing in the reception in a big organization, a lot of people actually feel quite intimidated by it. And then they need to go up and maybe be quite critical to a product. And sometimes they will not do that because it's just like too crazy being there, not in their own environment. But bringing in remote user testing actually does do that you can be in the safe space of your own home as well. So sometimes we actually see people being more honest when they evaluate products like that. So when we talk about remote tested, we have remote moderated and we have remote unmoderated. And remote moderated, that's where you are in the same virtual space at the same time. And the only difference is like we are sitting in different physical locations. So that would be exactly like here, where I could say to Casper, I think you should participate in a test together with me now, and then I'll moderate the test as I normally will do if we had been in the same physical space. So that would be like this direct communication, and often it would be like online, but sometimes it could also be over the phone if it's like a physical product being tested with, of course. Then we have remote unmoderated testing, and that's where the participants are on their own and they can complete the test when it suits them. So if I could send out a link to everyone participating in this talk saying, okay, I would actually like you to go through or be part of my test. And then it doesn't matter if you do it 5 minutes after I've sent the link or like in 2 days time, for instance. So you have completely freedom of when you want to do it. And that also comes back to that normally, like I come from the UX world, of course, and being a UX designer, we are normally very spread out. We have a lot of different things on our plate. So like if we can actually have more time to do our stuff, it would be nice. And being able to conduct unmoderated remote testing actually gives us a lot of time where we normally will sit moderating the test and use maybe a week for that. That week we can use for something else now because we have the opportunity to have participants doing it themselves. So that's quite great. And again, not everything, like sometimes we need to do that as well, like being together, but often we can actually test unmoderated, and that's great. Then in Preely, we actually collect both performance data, and you also have the opportunity of asking like these follow-up questions at the end of the different tasks. So we track performance data or behavioral data, it depends on where you come from, but it's the same. Just behind the scene, we do that and harvest that for you. And then you have the opportunity of setting up this more qualitative questions and have more qualitative data collected as well. And this is something we'll also show in later on when you actually are trying the test. So what we are actually collecting in Preely is the success rate, it's the time on task or task time completion, it's error rate, it's also the things that, or the metrics that you need in order to actually calculate your interaction cost as well. And then it's just depending on how you set up or make your test design that you also can actually measure on learnability as well. And that's something that's normally quite costly to do because you need to have test participants in more than once in order to actually facilitate that type of test when it comes to learnability. But that's also something we can do in Preely. And then we have the self-reported metrics. We have rating right now. We have net promoter score. We have multiple choice, and then we also have open-ended questions, and you'll see some of them later on as well. During fall, we'll also include a Likert scale, semantic differential scale, and also the system usability scale as well. And a lot of people ask, like, why are we actually having a net promoter score in a UX tool? And to be honest, as a UX designer, you can't use it for shit. But it's a very great tool to make stakeholder communication. And a lot of people from business actually use net promoter score. So if you're able during a concept development to actually put in some numbers on a net promoter score throughout the development, you can actually have a lot of people listening from business. So that's where it's there. And that's also actually why we are including the system usability scale as well, because that's actually where you actually get some information you can use when you actually want to make a user experience design or better usability in your product. So the benefits, I think I've like maybe said them, but it's easy and fast way to set up a test. You have fast and actionable results. It's low cost, and you can reach participants globally. So I think that's definitely 4 things that is very, very like something that it's just things that is great to be able to do, and also gives you a lot of freedom, because often you don't have a budget to make like a very like in-depth user testing and user research. So normally it would be nice to be able to say, okay, this is actually the case, and then I can also free some time from my work and actually be able to put that into some situation where it brings more value to the product at the end. So as I said, like we will say that remote unmoderated testing is in the conversion phases. That's where it actually is nice to use. It's nice to use when you have like a concept of like almost a full concept you want to test, but you can actually also break down your designs and like ideas and so on, and actually make small tests with small things in your design or small things in your concept. So you don't need to have like this very big setup in order to start. So you can definitely start when you also need to define where you're going with the project, and maybe also test with more low fidelity prototypes as well. And that's also sometimes something we'll come into later on in the presentation. And then we have remote unmoderated user testing in agile environments. And again, it actually comes back to the fact that when you work agile and you work in sprints, you have the opportunity of like working on something, and then at the end of a sprint, make a remote unmoderated test, send it out, go away from it, just let it live on its own for like the next sprint, and then you can come back and actually use your results for the next iteration of what you're going to do. So being able to have this freedom of not moderating and using a lot of time on moderating is actually great. We have like a small case study going on together with Nykredit here in Denmark, where we could see that it was people who didn't know Preely and have never like conducted this remote unmoderated user test. And they could actually set up a test and send it out within 4 hours. And that was actually compared to when the UX designers needed to actually make a normal UX test where they moderate the test. It took 26 hours. So there's a lot of time to be saved. And again, it doesn't matter if you send the test out to 6 people, 600 people, or 6,000 people. It's still like you just need to use the time for setting it up, and then it will live on its own. And then, like in Preely, we will collect the data and make the basic statistics as well. So there's definitely a lot of time you can spend on something else when you try to do these remote unmoderated testing. So things to consider before choosing remote unmoderated user testing. Again, where you are in the development process, it's not every time you should use this approach. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes you need to talk with users. Sometimes you need to sit beside them. Sometimes you need to go out in the world and see how they work, like the systems they're using, like around what you're developing and so on. So sometimes it doesn't make sense, but often it does. Then you need to be aware of which information you need. Like, again, is it something about like, are you in a place right now where it's like you're developing a concept and where you're not that, you don't know which direction you're going in, or are you having like some sort of direction on where you're going and then can start testing some concepts? That's also important to consider. And then you need to consider which stakeholders, what information stakeholders need. Should you have some things that convince them that they should go in this direction, or do they need some information in order to make some decisions? So that's also very important, and that also comes back to where you are in the development process. And then you definitely also need to consider which target segment you're aiming for here. So if you're aiming for like old people with dementia, maybe you should not create or conduct an unmoderated remote user test. And you need to be a bit tech savvy in order to do these things, because they need to download an app often and they are on their own. So you will not have this think aloud protocol around you where you can also like try to like encourage people to go on and so on. So there's some stuff here that also needs to be taken into consideration. And the same goes for like if you want to test with children, maybe this is not the right approach. But if it's more like in between those two, then definitely consider aiming for this approach. And then when you test remote unmoderated, then you need to think about how you orchestrate the test. You need to consider breaking down the test into very small chunks. Again, you don't have a facilitator sitting beside you and then encouraging you to go through the test. So it shouldn't be too long. It's very, very important that it's not too long. And it should be very, very like, okay, now I have a success. Now you need to answer some questions. Now it's a new task and so on. So they can feel that there's progress in the test along the way. This is also very important. So this is definitely some things to consider and have a discussion around before going for unmoderated remote user testing. So that was a lot like behind, like, okay, where are we, which space are we working in, and so on. Then we have Preely, of course, and that's also like we work there. So this is of course our small child and love child. So Preely is a platform for unmoderated remote user testing. Yes.
I was just thinking maybe we could just clear up a few questions before we get to the more specific part. This is leading into the user test, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have time, but obviously we need to be aware of the time as well. But there was a couple of questions in the chat. And Abdul asked, I suppose you could always keep on polishing a product and make it more user-friendly. Where do you draw the line so you don't end over-engineering the design and make the user experience worse? So I guess in relation to some of the things you said, like when do you know when you have done enough fiddling?
You don't know. Yeah, you never know, right? And that's exactly the same with when you're developing software. Sometimes you also go over the top and then you start making it bad as well. But I think when you work with usability and UX, then you have the users. So you have some, if you test, then you know when you are where you need to be. So you can start seeing that in your data, of course. And I've never experienced and we have had too much user experience in a product. But of course, you set up some success criteria normally. Normally, you will like have some benchmark of competitor products where you start measuring up against something that is known. So you have an idea of where you are and when it's enough. For instance, when I worked at Bang & Olufsen, I developed this UX KPI and benchmarking tool. So that was where we actually benchmarked all of our competitors. And that was actually both the physical user experience, but also the digital, like in the different apps they had. And then we said, together with the product managers and said, okay, this new concept we're working with, that it at the end should be a new product. How should that score within different usability and UX metrics? So we actually put numbers on it from 1 to 10, and then said, when we can see in a user test that it reaches 8, for instance, then we definitely believe that the user experience is good enough in this area. And then if we have time, then we'll focus on some of the other areas where the score is lower. So having like either a benchmark against a competitor or having a benchmark against an older version is nice to have. And then setting up some success criteria together with a product manager, or like if you have that, of course, and say, okay, when is enough, and then have like a language around that is very beneficial. And we can see it with that tool we developed at Bang & Olufsen. That was very beneficial because then you actually had a language to talk around these things, because normally user experience design is so fluffy and it's almost impossible to say, yeah, as also in the question, when is enough? And then we actually had some quantitative numbers and we could support that with quantitative data as well, and say, now we have actually reached what we set out to do. And now that's enough. I hope that was an answer.
It sure was an answer and a good one too. And then we have Matthias asking, how long time can there be before a user is lost in an unmoderated test? And then he asks, how aggressive should you be in getting them to answer? And I think maybe just again, the difference here is in an unmoderated test, you can't actually pace the user directly because they're on their own.
Yeah.
But how often do you see users like starting a test and then not completing it?
It depends, right? It definitely depends on the product, and it depends on like how long the test is. So that's also why I put emphasis on having like these short tests, because it's so important that they feel like they have completed something. Or if they are not completing it and giving up, then it's more like, okay, it was a small thing, so I don't feel like a failure. So there's definitely something around when you design the test that you need to be aware of, not having these like, okay, you need to go through this and this and this and this and this and this, and then I'm done. You should break it up. For instance, if you have like, normally I use an example of like a sales flow on a web page, right? A checkout flow. So there you should have like, okay, sign in, that's one task or one test. Then put in your different credentials and actually be successfully signed in, that's another one. And then being able to proceed to sales, that's the third one. And then like being able to pay, that would be a fourth one. So it should be like very broken down into very, very small chunks when you do it like this. And again, this is also like a good thing to do when you're moderating tests, because if you have people actually giving up also in a moderated test, then it's just nice to have data up until they have given up. So instead of having like this big test where you actually first have the results at the end, you should definitely always aim for having some results throughout the test. So no matter what happens, you can have like this a stop where you actually have information and data up until. So definitely have that in mind.
Very well. And I guess another pro tip is that obviously you need to test your tests. So it's
yes,
it'd be very bad if the user actually gets stuck because you have designed the test poorly and not because your product was designed poorly.
Exactly. And we have like in general in Preely, we also say that, okay, like of course you should make a pilot test and also send it out to people in your organization. And in your case, it could be like to other students, right? Also just to have like give an idea of where you are and like have the information, of course, and then like have the pilot study, so you're sure that there is not anything that they can misunderstand and so on, but also just to have like new inputs and have like, we use it a lot as a communication tool as well to stakeholders. So actually sending out the pilot to the stakeholders so they know what is going on, and sometimes they actually respond back saying that there's some more things they wanted to have tested. So it's a great communication tool as well.
All right. I think we should get back on track with your presentation. And
awesome. So yeah, so Preely, we at this platform, we've divided the platform into 3. So the first one is actually where you make your prototype and also where you make the test unmoderated. So you can use Preely for everything from very early on in the product or concept development phase, where you have things on a napkin. You can just like draw something on a napkin, draw something on a whiteboard, take a picture, upload it to Preely and make a clickable prototype. But you can also do it more high fidelity, where you have like designs lying in Figma, XD, InVision, and Sketch, and then actually export your prototypes direct to Preely as well. So we like embrace like from very early on to very late on in the development process, and also from very like, okay, it's somebody who actually knows UX and design that do something, to people who just have an idea that they want to test out with different people. So that's what we're doing there, and then we make it. And then we make the test unmoderated. So here you actually make the task, and then you write all the stuff you normally will do when you moderate a test. So the welcoming, like the setting the scene for the test, what the participants should do and so on, that will be in writing here. And then it comes out as this unmoderated remote test. Then we have a test panel area as well, and that's where you can host your test panel. You have the opportunity of actually adding your own specific segmentation questions here. So for instance, I could imagine Orbit Lab could have its own test panel, and then you could say, okay, different study directions, you could put that in as a segmentation question. You could add in like, are you an iOS user or are you an Android user, and so forth. And then you can actually filter when you send out the test. And then we have the analytics, and that's where we have these actionable metrics and also some visualization that is very good to put in your deck when you need to present to your stakeholders as well. And at like during fall, we'll also add the opportunity of when you're actually using the segmentation in the test panel, you can actually bring that to the analytics and start to see if there's some correlation between the different data and the different segmentation questions you're used as well. So that's the platform, and you will see it in a bit. Then we have a lot of stuff going on. So we have this pretty near future. We have a redesign of the platform. So what you're going to see today, it's not how it's going to look like when we reach 2021. We are upgrading the visual identity and also the customer journey in general on the platform. We add the opportunity of having multiple questions. So right now, when you make a task and have a question at the end, you have a question and then you can have a follow-up question. We open up for the opportunity of you can have all the questions you want. And then we are adding the Likert scale, the semantic differentiation scale, and then also the system usability scale as well, as I mentioned before. And then, as I said, the customized segmentation question for the test panel. And then we can see a lot of our customers, and I don't think that's you guys, of course, but we can see a lot of people come from a qualitative world where they are very like a bit afraid when we talk about being more quantitative in the approach and more quantitative in user testing and also quantifying usability and UX. So we are working on this toolbox where we actually try to hold the hand a bit and educate them how to make hypotheses and assumption, setting these success criteria as we talked about before, which statistics you need to use in order to actually use your results for the best, and so on. So there's a lot of stuff going on there as well. And then we have a lot of support and blog posts coming out, and that's of course something you already can see now. And then we have these different webinars and meetups as well, where we have like interesting people who work with UX in. We just had Almindelig Brand in last week, and then we are going to have Maersk in, and we're going to have IKEA and SimCorp in as the next one. So that's going to be quite interesting to hear how they work with usability and UX in that type of organizations as well. So then we have some academic collaborations. We are part of a research study together with Aalborg University and IT University of Copenhagen, where we're looking into the next generation of this type of tests. So that's going to be quite interesting. And then we also have like a small treat together with you guys, and we'll talk about that later on, but I'm looking very much forward to like reveal that. So now I have talked a lot, and I guess like everybody's just confused. So we normally say that don't tell it short. So I hope people are up for a small user test, and I hope people are up for downloading the Preely app. So I cannot see anybody, so I hope somebody will just say yes or no.
We'll do it.
Awesome.
And hopefully I'm in as well.
Sounds great, Klaus.
My machine is broke. But I'm here.
Oh, it's nice. Nice to hear your voice.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question that is not regarding the app download?
Yeah, of course.
So as it seems, the testing is for pre-compilation or pre-programming. Is there any way to put in an app that is almost done or is already created in some kind of code already, or is it only for visual like the XD stuff?
Like if it's an app, you can't put it in, unfortunately. Of course, you can take screenshots of it and put it in, and then like making a test like that. If you have a web page or something that is like on web, you have the opportunity, like if it's like a browser based, you can actually grab the URL and put it in and then make a test from there.
Okay, thank you. And one short thing, you have the benefit slide in a bit back, and it's just a comment, but it might be cute to have the line through it with the un and moderated instead of the un-m moderated. Just a thought.
Okay, thank you.
So people are starting to ask how can they join the test. So I assume you're going to post some.
Awesome, I will do that. So you should just tap scan. So you should say no to being invited and then tap scan on the upper left corner.
So apparently we owe people money now.
Yes.
You do. It's not cheap.
Maybe it's worth mentioning that if we could have sent you a link to the test. Oh, something is calling. No. Worth mentioning that if we could have sent you a link to a test by email, we have done that, but we'll have done that, but it is actually the same as scanning the QR code.
Downloaded an app where we had to go through and transfer money to a person on a finance app. And then presumably we're going to see some data on that in the Preely interface now.
Exactly. And you can still participate if you are not online right now, but watching the video later on.
Comment for Preely.
Yeah.
There's this where I can read the exercise again. It could be nice if I could take that a bit down to read and then up again instead of going to the whole page and then going back.
Yeah. We'll take that with us. We have a lot of things on the plate, so I think we have that already, but thank you.
It's awesome. Just shoot if you find something.
Exactly.
The results is ticking in. And that's quite nice.
Great to see.
So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Nice. So let me know when you're done.
It's 122 now. Yeah.
So a lot of people saying that they are done now.
Awesome. Then I think we'll just continue. So now we're in Preely, and what you see now is the desktop. You see I have different tests in here in our space. The test you participated in is this one, where we have the new feedback. You can see that there is 11 screens in the test. We have one task, and we can see 122 have actually like
124 actually.
Oh, I'll update again. Awesome.
Okay. Yes.
Then we go in, and here you have the summary, and you can see like 132 people actually started the test, and we had a drop of 8, and we actually distinguish between drop off and gave up here. So drop off is people that have just closed down the app again and just like didn't want to participate anymore. Where gave up, you actually have a button saying give up, and then you have the opportunity of writing in why you actually gave up. So there's a difference there. But we can see 124 have actually participated in the test and have gone through the test. Then concerning the demographic data, it was not mandatory, so that's why the numbers do not add up to the 132. But we can see that the people who have actually like set or answered those questions, we can see that there is a majority of men. We can see the average age is around 34.5 years, and we can see there's a heavy use of iOS devices in the people who have participated. So that's like the general summary of the test. Then if we scroll down, we have the tasks. And in this case, there were just like one task. So if you had more tasks in the test, they would just been shown underneath each other here. We can see like what the task was. We can see what questions you were to answer at the end. Then we can see some of the data. We can see 94% success rate in the test, so that's great. We can see the average task time is 28 seconds, and we can see no one gave up on the task, and then the rating or the average rating have been almost 8. You also have the opportunity of looking at the participants. So here you can see each participant. So we'll just have that load. There is a lot of people, and you have the opportunity to go in on each of them and see like who they are, like of course like anonymously if that's the case, and then you can also see like which path they've actually taken through your prototype, and you have the opportunity of clicking here, so you can actually also see how many seconds each participant had used in the flow. And then we have something that is quite unique for us, and that's these input fields. And there you have the opportunity of actually setting if it should be numbers. In this case, we are masking it. So here I can see that this person had typed in a number. I can see it's 3 numbers, so I guess it's 200, but I cannot see if it's 200. But we are validating the input field. And the same goes for if you want like having like a text heavy form, for instance, then you can actually start to have like real data and real time on task on the different flows, because you can set it so you need to type in an email address. We are validating if there is an add and a dot something in the flow or in the input. And the same goes for like if it should be an URL or if it should be a text field as well. So that's quite unique. And then it also triggers that if you are on a mobile phone, and you also saw that in the test, that you actually have like keyboard popping up, so you are actually writing in some stuff. Normally in these type of tools, you actually just have where you tap one place and then the field is filled in. So that's quite unique for the platform. But let's go back to let's see if I can correct this one, and let's go back to the aggregated data instead and see what has happened like in the flow and so on. So here we have the rating, and here you have the distribution of the different ratings given. We also have everybody, and then you can see who has actually like given the different ratings down here. And then of course you can dig into them and see how they have also performed in the other tasks and so on. Then I'll jump over heat maps because I'm not that fond of that, but action, I definitely believe it's quite nice to look at, because there you have all the screens that are represented in the test. You have the opportunity of see where people have clicked. So right now we see all actions on all visits. And you can see here that we actually have people that have come back. We have had one that has gone back again and then have tapped transfer at the end. So you can imagine that this was a very like simple prototype you have been through, but if it was a bit more complex and there were more like, for instance, like a menu structure or like things they needed to sort out or hierarchy of the menus and so on, that would be quite interesting to see like how many times they go back to where they started and then start a new journey in order to find what they are setting out to solve. We can see that in this case, if we say the last click where people have actually like gone to the next screen, we tested the wording here. So all 4 buttons have actually been like something where you can go further on in the prototype, but we can see that 61 have actually chosen transfer, the transfer button, and 56 have chosen the send button instead. So there's already here some information that give an indication of like which wording would people use in this prototype. Furthermore, you have average time on screen, you have average time to first action, then you have total visits and unique visits. And you can imagine that if it's a very complex things where people get lost, the total visits will be very high on this one. So there's also some information there. Then we have the hotspot hit ratio, and we see that that's on 90%. And that's also giving an indication of like, are people actually having the mental model you think they have when you design these things? And then you also have the opportunity, of course, to see which 3 screens come up after this one. And here it's just one because all 4 buttons go to the same screen. You also have the opportunity of seeing that people have actually scrolled in this prototype. Nobody has swiped. We also track that as well, but people have actually tried to see if there were more on the screen that there is. And then this also indicates like how far they go into the scrolling. So it would be like, now you couldn't scroll, but you can imagine that it would be darker and get lighter and lighter and lighter. So you can actually see if people have been scrolling to the bottom of the page, if that's the case. And if you tested something where it was very important that they actually went down there as well. So here, there's some stuff here that you definitely can make some recommendations from. Then we have heat map, and it's actually the same information on the over here. The only thing is the visual representation. And as a UX designer, I cannot use the heat map for anything. I will definitely always use the actions. But for like stakeholder communication as well, I know that like a lot of stakeholders want to see a heat map because apparently that gives them something, and it's something that they have seen before. So they are very comforted by seeing it in that way instead of like with the dots. So, but again, I don't think that gives that much information. Then we have the path, and that's where I think it becomes very interesting, because normally, and I'm not sure, of course, with you guys, but normally when you make something where people needs to figure out something or go through like something, you always have the ideal path in your head. And here we of course knew that, okay, we wanted them to go like in a certain path and blah, blah, blah. So here we have the different participants diverted into, put into different paths. So we can see the first path here, we have had 76 people going through that one. We have the average time here. We have a number of screens in the path as well. And then we also have the participant that actually choose to go through that path. And then we have like the second path down here, where you have the same information and so on. So here you can definitely start to see the navigation flow through your prototype and see if they actually are, if the flow they choose are actually also the flow that you actually expected them to take as well. So I think that was like the analytics part. I don't know, Klaus, do you have anything you want to add here? Hello?
Sorry, my computer. No, I think that covers all. I think so. Sorry.
Awesome. Oh, shit! I actually thought I was like disconnected. Awesome. Okay, then we have a share test. As Klaus said before, you can share it via link. So you just send a mail. Like,
sorry, it's in a, maybe on analytics. You're able to download all the information if you like,
right.
if you want to work with a
CSV
file.
So it's a comma separated file. So if you have like a statistic program, you can just download it there and then use that tool of preference, of course, to see the different correlations and so on in the data. And then share test, we have the link. If you are up for a test panel, you can set that up. I could imagine like as Orbit Lab, you could have like a shared test panel there, and then you of course can send out the test through that panel. And then we have the prototype area. And again, you can upload pictures, like hand drawing pictures on a napkin, like something that is been going on the whiteboard, pictures from whatever, and then make it a clickable prototype. You also have the opportunity of grabbing a URL. So if you want to test like on a web page or something that is browser based, you can do that as well here. And then we have the opportunity, of course, to export from the most common drawing tools as well. Then we have the opportunity here, and then to set up the test. So when we link between screens, we call that a hotspot. So you can see here's actually 4 hotspots. We can see like where it links to. We can have different transitions in the flow of how it actually comes to the screen, which gesture you need to use in order to actually trigger the hotspots. And then you can also make this validation, and this validation is very closely related to the input fields as well. We have an input field here, and an input field, that's where you can make this like say, okay, we want to have a number. Now this is locked, but you have a drop down here saying that, okay, should it be an email, should it be a URL, should it be letters only, and so on. And then you can actually validate when you type a hotspot, and then we can have like an error message up there as well. So you can block the test until they have actually typed in the things you want them to type in.
You can clone the test if you want to.
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense just to show that. Then we have the task, and this is where you make it unmoderated. And you can see here that we have typed in, okay, like the task here, and then we have set a start screen, and this is this one. And then we have multiple end screens. We have 2 end screens. And you have the opportunity here of setting like when they are done with a test that they need to tap a hotspot in order to finalize the test, or you can set it as a timer. So when they reach a certain page in your prototype, then you will automatically send them to the questions they need to ask. So that's what we can do there. And then if we come back to the prototype, and if you do everything in Preely, you have the opportunity of setting fixed areas. So if you want a sticky header or sticky footer, you can do that direct in Preely. You can set up a timer. So if you want to illustrate some sort of loading and so on, you can do that and put in some milliseconds. So you actually have a flow that is very similar to the real flow that you will implement in your design. And then of course you can also rotate the design if you want to do that and have it horizontal as well. So I think that was the platform, very briefly gone through. So I'm not sure if there's any questions.
There are a couple of questions that came in. I think Christopher Christopher Houghton posted if it was possible to do timed transitions and animations, and I think you actually got to answer that in the end. So
yeah, and you can also actually set a timer for open a feedback.
We talked about that. Oh, yeah.
Okay, sorry, my fault. Okay, great.
Another question, and I think you touched on this. It went very fast because you went through a lot of tools that you support. But you support uploading an already created prototype from Figma.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
And with like one thing that like we don't have the interaction with right now. So when you upload from Figma, the interaction is not part of it, but it will be doing fall in the next iteration of the plugin.
So you have to set up your own hotspots and transitions.
Yeah, right now you need to do that, but that's something we're working on. So you don't need to do the work twice.
And maybe that translates also to, that was also from Søren Gregersen. He also asked, how does this task setup work if you're using a web-based app as a prototype? Do you also have to kind of overlay hotspots on that, or can you?
Yeah, you need to do that. Like if you use the grabbing, you need to do that. We can't take in the interaction from that. So there you need to put that in as well. But the positive thing there is that if you have like a scrollable web page, we have the whole page. So it's not like when you take a normal screenshot.
Okay. Then there's a question, can users only be anonymous?
Klaus, I think that's for you.
Oh. Was the question, can they?
If the question is if the users have to be anonymous, or if you can have actually specific users that you are tracking, I guess, depending on what information you ask them.
Yes, and it is also depends on if the users are actually part of the test panel. So if they want to be part of your own test panel, you can identify them by name and email and all the information that actually is gathered by inviting them to the platform.
Yeah.
So that's why, yeah. And there's actually two ways of inviting them to the platform. You can have the like Tina showed you, invite them after a test is done. So you can ask them, okay, do you want to be part of our community or our panel? Or you can actually start recruiting them into your own recruitment page, and you can set up. That's a different place on the platform. Tina hasn't shown you, but then there you can ask a lot of questions, actually segmentation questions for testers. So you can learn a lot about people who you can recruit.
I think that's a good point for people who have a little startup business as well going on, that you do want to build this kind of pool of users that you can around.
That's definitely running. Yeah.
Exactly. And also we see that in general, a lot of like why companies do not use a test is because they don't have easy access to participants. So being able to collect your own participant pool here or participant panel, it's very valuable because it's quite easy to set up a test and know which type of information you need, but having the people who need to go through the test, that's often the hard part. So easy access is key to a lot of things here.
And then I think there's a related question here from Carol. In the case you'll need users as a base for research, how will you reward users for participating in tests like these? I guess that could be two-sided, right? One is, can you keep track of who has actually done the work and are eligible for the award? And do you have any features built in for more like research compensation for participating?
Yeah, we don't have it built in, but we see companies who use the test panel and have hosted their own test panel. Then at the end of the test, there's a link, and then like you need to go through the whole test and then use the link, and then they get a reward through that. So that's normally how it is. And then if you book test participants through us, then we make sure that they are they are paid. And this is not something that we show on the platform, but you have the opportunity of having test participants through us as well.
But you are able to see who have participated in that specific test. So when you look at the analytics part, you can download a separate file that shows completely who have participated with email and name. Yeah. So
it's more like if you want it automated, then you can do it like having the link at the end of the test.
I think here's a business idea for you guys is to integrate with Amazon Turk. A lot of companies, that's mostly for the US market, are using Amazon Turk to recruit users for this. And I think if you could integrate with that and with their reward system, that would be
that's a good idea. That's actually a good idea. Yeah.
So I hope that answered the question, Carol. Else, please write again. And then there was a follow-up from Søren as well. What about prototypes? Is that something you're planning to make as well?
No,
not at the moment. No,
it's not on the roadmap. But of course, if we hear it often enough, then it's definitely something that we will consider putting on the roadmap.
Short and precise answer. Also, I guess a little bit of user-driven design and development on your part, that you have to actually see a need because there's so many things that you have on your roadmap now.
Exactly. And I'll also say that like we have a very close collaboration with our customers. So of course, when we hear things enough, then we'll definitely consider putting it on the roadmap and include it. And then sometimes it's also things that we have been thinking of ourselves. For instance, we have like eye tracking. That would be a great idea. And then we actually tried together with one of our customers saying that, okay, maybe we can actually, like, of course, you cannot have the results from the eye tracking into the Preely platform, but they actually used Preely together with the eye tracking tools to facilitate an eye tracking test. And the same goes for like having this remote testing. It's easy to do. It's just like when we're on Zoom here, right? Then I could just as easily have had a test, a desktop test running and then moderated that through Zoom. But we are very like listening to where people are and what they need and so on. And that's also why we have very close collab with the universities, because we know that people from the universities are looking into all different things. So if we can be on top of the new things coming and have that as part of our offering, that's very valuable for us, of course.
There is another question from Søren here. Do you support animations and custom transitions in the prototypes?
Klaus, I think that's you, because we don't do it in Figma and XD right now because they're not opening up for it. So that's discussion we have with those two partners. Do we do it in Vision and in Sketch?
No, not at the moment. No.
But we have a close dialogue with Figma and Adobe XD in order to actually open up for the layers as well.
I think maybe we could, I know we have a lot of students here on the call, and I might see the video later and considering using this tool for their studies if they're developing prototypes or apps together with companies or startups. Is it, if you are not an expert, so you covered all of these things, and this talk is not about the details of that, but when you have to select your metrics and your questions and all the things, do you have any sort of guides or templates that you can start out from? Is that part of your blog kind of, you mentioned you have the blog posts?
Yeah, we have something on the blog, and then we also have like Preely Academy, where a lot of these things are answered as well. So that would be a good place to start if you're very new to the area.
And did you say will have or have?
Have.
We have.
Yeah. That's some of the things we actually have, so that's nice.
I think that's very good. I think a lot of people come from the technical side, and also knowing that must have been that something companies struggle with is for UX designers who uncover these findings and say, oh, we need to do this and that. And then they actually afterwards needs to go and convince the developers and the kind of technical leads that, well, the users want this. And then they're like, no, we can't do that. And then it seems like what's the point anyways? But this is a way to actually get some hard numbers, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Also because you are more to the quantitative side of things. So instead of having these, like we see attendance, or we can see we have some quotes and so on, then we actually have hardcore numbers for different things, together with some more qualitative when it comes to for instance, open-ended questions.
And this is also good for your projects if you're handing in assignments where you kind of need to test your apps or software products, or if you're doing your bachelor, your master's, and you're developing a product. There's nothing better than actually putting some well-documented, well-structured testing, user testing of your app into that to kind of say, not only did we build it technically well, but we actually also went out and tested with real users to say that they could go through it.
Exactly, and there's a huge demand for that as well, like in industry, where like I was sitting together with Bang & Olufsen, and I was product owner for the Bang & Olufsen app, and we couldn't have developed what we did if the developers didn't have that mindset of actually listening to users as well. So it's very important.
All right. Well, I think there are thousands and thousands of questions. We saw them probably more towards the UX and usability side.
Yeah.
But I think let's keep the focus on the tool. And you were on the time. We have actually we're good on time. So if there's more questions, please keep posting them. But else, maybe there is a little something that you want to talk about that might make things more interesting. That you
from our side, we have things as well. So we are very now I'll just share again here. So we actually give free access to Pretty Premium for students at Orbit Lab. So we're very happy to do that, and also maybe to be part of some student projects as well. It's quite easy. You just need to sign up with your Aarhus University account on pretty.com. And then you just need to let us know through our chat that you want the premium access, and then we'll make magic happen. So we hope to see a lot of you guys online as well and trying the tool. And again, give us all the feedback you want, because we are in a position or in a situation right now where a lot of new things are coming in, and a lot of new things are happening around the platform as well. So the more information we can get from people using the tool, the better. So just shoot away when you see something that is weird, or you are missing, or doesn't make any sense, and so on. Then they will see what we can do. So, and then we also have like another thing as well, because we want to invite you to, we are part of this research study together with the IT University of Copenhagen and Aalborg University about the next generation of remote user testing. And we have an event coming up in November 12th. It's actually hosted physically at Aalborg University in Copenhagen, but we're also hosting it on Zoom. So you can sign up for that event. We have this collaboration with the universities, but we also have some of our customers participating in this study, and that's New Day, Nykredit, Dogwise, and Undo. And then we've also just had Danske Spil in as well as a fifth one. And you can sign up for this event, and it's free via infinite.dk. So that was 2 small treats for you guys.
I think that is some really big treats, and we're super excited to have this tool available. And I can also say, as doing teaching here at Aarhus University, this will be of immense value to actually give. I think a lot of the time the main obstacle is, besides convincing people that how much value it actually adds, is to just spend the time on it. And I think what is so great about this tool is that it takes all of the time consuming parts out of it, and that you can actually take a very you can go from a paper prototype, or you can take a more advanced layout and just upload it, and then you can run it on 100 people, and you can just drag the data out and use it straight in your report or whatever you use it for. So I'm definitely looking forward to see how this will add. I hope to see actually better, more thought through user interfaces in all our software projects going forward.
That sounds great. So guys, he has high expectations now.
we will force this on you, and your grades will be based on the user experience of your apps and not your.
Oh, that's nice. I love, like, my UX heart just like skipped a beat when you said that.
And everybody else are shaking now because now their design skills are
Ooh, yeah.
on the line. But a lot of people saying thank you in the comments. So and also, again, not everybody could participate today, so we'll make sure to spread the news around, and hopefully you guys will get a lot of test users. I think there was a question that I missed. I just wanted to make sure. Then it's from Sun. What is your opinion on recording voice or video of test persons when performing usability tests? I guess that's I don't know if that's a general question in this case, because that's not something you support in
No, we don't support it. And I will also say that if you are going for that, like, I've been used to moderating tests and have this single out protocol where people should talk, and then you need to sit beside them, because or else you need to train them very, very well. And even though I'm very trained in single out tests, when I participate in tests where I need to single out on my own without a moderator, I forget it, because I just go so much into like the experience of it. So normally you will not have that valuable data, especially if it's not with trained single out users, first of all. And then secondly, it's also very time consuming when it comes to analyzing that type of data. And there I'll definitely say that if you are going for that, then I also think you should put in the time of moderating as well, because that also makes the analysis easier, because you can recall what happened during the test. So I'll set it in that perspective instead.
Do you have any, what's the largest studies that people have done on your platform? Because to me also, I mean, one is speed, right? You can move fast and you can be agile. You can do a lot of small tests and keep getting user input throughout the development process. But the other one is that you can actually do really big testing on a geographical large scale.
Yeah.
With tons of people.
Yeah, we had one customer that actually tested with 2,000 people, because she had the opportunity. And again, that's also a discussion you need to have, because does that actually bring any value, that testing with so many people? Maybe it does. It depends on how business critical the things you're testing is. And also, like, for instance, I worked in a medical company where one usability error could actually do that a person died. So there is also some discussions you need to have on how many participants you need in order to be sure that you uncover X number of usability errors. So it's very much like how critical an error is going to be in the final design that you need to take into consideration when you decide on how many participants you need for the study. And we actually have just written a blog post about that. So that's actually something you can check on our blog. So 2,000, I'm not sure if it makes any sense, because maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But from a UX perspective, I cannot see any value. Normally, I would say that if it's very, very critical that you find all usability errors, then I'll say around 100 people. So that's also something you need to take into consideration.
I guess if you're doing, if you're like a global first app development company and you want to get out in a lot of markets and you're actually trying to tailor your user experience to different cultures or things like that, the segmentation of your user groups might actually, if you want a meaningful amount of participants in each experiment, then the total experiment could be quite large.
Yeah, that's right. So if you have sub-experiment under the umbrella, then it would make sense, definitely. But for the same test with the same type of user groups and so on, then it doesn't make that much sense. And so it depends again, right? Because then it's also about testing a concept and not usability. So that also depends on like where you are in the process and so on. But I could definitely see that you could use the tool for these very early on concepts and see if there's a market for it and like what they want to put in an app, for instance, as you point out. Definitely.
Right. Any meaning behind the name Preely is asked by Abdul.
Yeah, that was before my time.
Actually, we were called Test Lab before that. Yeah, so it took us quite a long time to figure out the name Preely, but it is pre and early.
Makes sense. Could also be prototype early or.
Yeah.
and also something about pre-prototyping and so on. So there's a lot of different things going into the name.
It has a good ring to it for sure.
Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
So for the participants, please keep those questions coming. We do have a bit more time, but of course we do not want to drag things out. I guess, so you sign up with your AU email and you can actually go test this out right now, right? You said you already enabled it. So you are hereby the first test users, maybe if you're fast.
Yeah, and then you just need to put in the chat that you want to, see if I can do this. I'm not going the right way. So there's something wrong with my screen run. Oops, yep. So you want to put in the chat that you want premium access. Then we'll open.
So do you need that for each account or just for?
Yeah, each account. And then it's opened until the beginning of 2021. And then you just need to send your mail again, and then we'll open up again.
I think maybe we can organize, now Lida had to leave the event a bit earlier, but we can organize through Orbit Lab to get people enrolled in this. We can keep track of, so you don't get thousands of emails.
Yeah, that would be great.
Great.
Nice.
About the test, what do you call it, the panel?
Yeah.
Is that moderated on each account, or do we get like a master account for doing that, or can anybody set up their own test panels with a premium account?
Klaus, I think that's you.
Yeah. Everyone can set up a panel for each account, but it depends on how you want it. We can actually have on our enterprise solution, everybody is to the same panel, so everybody is can enter all the participants. But in this case here, each one have their own test panel. But you can share it with each other. Actually, you can invite people into your workspace and get access to even to have access to your test panel. But for now, this is for each one of them.
But I could definitely believe that you could make like a whole Orbit Lab test panel, one of you, and then actually send the invitation out and then share it across accounts. Yeah.
It's at least a use case we see pretty much every semester, that a lot of people suddenly need test users in their projects to make design decisions early on, or maybe to do more summative evaluations in the end of the projects. So that would be very powerful. I have to ask the kind of boring question here, but GDPR and stuff, that's obviously handled by you guys. And you are using, as far as I remember, was it Amazon or?
Yes. Yeah, we have.
Yeah. So it should scale up even if everybody goes crazy.
Yeah.
It should, yeah.
We can take handle of that.
But Kasper, we could definitely discuss like if you need some sort of extra data agreement or something with us. We've just signed one with Aalborg University as well because they wanted some more.
Yeah, I think AU might, we'll take that step next time, but I think more or less as private users now, students should be able to start using it. It's more if we're using it for like research projects.
And also if you use it together with companies, then we might need to.
There's a lot of cases, and we'll take it to our our guys.
Great.
They will have some words to say about it as well.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Abdul, just to be sure, the design in itself is not something you can do in Preely. It's only the interactivity to some kind of image. So like you need a screenshot of your design and then you can do an overlay of interactive hotspots, right?
Yeah. So we've just made the decision that we're not a prototyping tool, because we can see a lot of other tools are much greater in that perspective than we are. So it's more in order to make it an interactive prototype we can do. And then you can set the small things, of course. You can like rotate it, and you can also set the sticky header and footer as well. So if you want to make an app design with those things or a homepage with those things.
Cool. I think there was one more question I might have missed. I don't know if it's a statement or a question. It's Carol who says there is pricing, is much info about it. I'm not sure that your website does not have much information about pricing, or
We have there's a pricing page in there.
it's a statement, I guess. I'm not quite sure what it's.
Okay.
I'm trying to convey it here. Carol, feel free to grab the microphone and
elaborate a bit. Also pricing, like it's free for the students, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was not meant in any negative
Okay.
sense. It also came with a smiley face. So
Okay.
definitely, and also
You're forgiven then.
no need to put any statement. No, I think that there should not free premium for everybody. It doesn't. It's like Oprah Winfrey, you know.
Exactly.
One for you, one for you. Excellent. Well, I, for one, really look forward to seeing this in use. And I hope we can also help you by giving you a lot of new use cases and feedback on what could add value for the use both in education, but of course, all of our students are building really cool products, and many of them go on into companies or become startups. So I think there's a lot of use cases here.
That sounds great. Also, just to have it stress tested, it's just so nice because we cannot think of all the situations where people could see a potential in using the platform. So it's just nice to see also if it doesn't work as well. So that's also very successful.
Cool. Is there any last comments or statements before we move into the thank you so much for not only telling us about some of the you covered a lot of ground on the basic concepts of usability and user experience, and I think that's a whole field with a lot of terminology and a lot of meaning in different domains. Like design for designers, it's something, and for engineers, it's something else. So, but that was super interesting. But obviously, linking it to this hands-on tool that can do so many cool things, and that we now get to play with it for free going forward. That's amazing. So, thank you both so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Great.
Great.
People are saying thank you in the comments as well.
Yes. Thank you, Susanne. Thank you, David. Thanks.
And how do people reach out to you best? Do they reach you through? It's on your website, I'm sure. But
yes, there is a chat. That will be the easiest way, actually. Yeah, we will be there.
A chatbot, or is it straight to the CEO?
No, it's straight to the CEO. Yes, it is actually. We don't have a chatbot. So we're real people.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So we're here.
All right. Well, I think
awesome.
Conclude. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And hope to see you on the platform.
I'm sure we're all clapping at home for the presentation.
Thank you. All right.
Awesome.
Have a great day, Tom.
You too. We'll be in touch.
See you.
Sounds great. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.